welcome to this afternoon, on this rainy afternoon. I'm very happy that all of you have come out in this. Who knew? It was such a beautiful morning. My name is Deanne McIntyre, and I am the curator of the show, the art exhibit at the Vladem, Finding Parkinson's, Doing Battle with My Brain by the artist David Thomas. Before we start, I would like to thank the New Mexico School for the Arts, particularly Cindy Montoya, Sarah Pfister, and Steve Wilson. Without them, well, we wouldn't know where to sit or what to talk into here. I would also like to thank the New Mexico Committee of the National Museum of Women in the Arts with their help at the Vladem during the run of this exhibit, and particularly Nancy Krieger. Now, our panel discussion, Art and Movement. I will introduce the participants and then turn it over to Adrienne Shurbet, who will be our moderator. First, Laura Dwyer. Before I introduce Laura, though, another thank you. I want to thank Emma Shearer at the Santa Fe Symphony for her immediate recognition that Laura would be a perfect addition to our panel today. Laura is a renowned flutist and educator of yoga and movement and teaches meditation. Not only is she a current member of the Santa Fe Symphony, she has performed with many of the great city orchestras such as Philadelphia and St. Louis. She has a passion for opera and has performed extensively with the opera companies in St. Louis, Palm Beach, Sarasota, and our own Santa Fe Opera. Laura has spent the last decade teaching the flute, ensemble, and movement for musicians at Marysville University in St. Louis. Her most recent teaching assignment there is Movement for Music Therapists. She has notable success in working with musicians in finding their body-mind ease. When a close friend was diagnosed with Parkinson's, she began using her proven techniques in yoga, rhythmic movement, and breath work with them. Later, her brother was diagnosed with Parkinson's. Laura, thank you for being with us today. Next, we have Dr. Gordon Woods. Gordon is from Las Cruces. He studied chemistry at New Mexico State University, medicine at UNM, and internal medicine at the LDS Hospital in Salt Lake City. After 5 years in private practice, he joined the faculty of the University of California in their family medicine program. Well, that's just the beginning of his incredible career. I haven't mentioned the numerous awards for excellence or the Lifetime Teaching Award. Well, I guess I did just mention it. His CV goes on for several more paragraphs. I could shorten it to say he graduated from the medical school in Albuquerque in 1980. He trained in internal medicine and spent 34 years working in medical education. Gordon retired to Santa Fe from his position as Associate Professor of Medical Education in 2021. He has time now for music, painting, traveling, and his best one is the writing. And and working out with Adrienne at Punching Out Parkinson's. Next. Next, we have David Wargo. David is the founding director of Movement360. Oh my. Goodness. He's the founding director of Movement360. David's path to learning and problem solving began early, outside the classroom. An education system that couldn't understand him mislabeled him and placed him in special ed. But David forged his own way of learning, adapting, and solving problems in a way that no school could teach. That challenge ignited a lifelong curiosity that shaped him into an inventor, creator, and entrepreneur. Over the years, he has founded programs or worked in more than 70 different areas, ranging from a Kleiner Perkins startup during the first dot-com boom to building and selling an international recruiting firm. Today, as the founding director of Movement360, David has devoted the past 16 years to pioneering a neurological approach that restores movement and alignment. With over 5,000 clients and 19,000 hours of hands-on work, his program has transformed lives, teaching people how to heal themselves through the Movement360 method. It is my pleasure to welcome David to our panel. Shannon Elliott. Shannon Elliott, the co-director. She's the co-director of the Movement360. Beginning as a gymnast at age 5, Shannon went on later to have a 20-year career as a professional dancer, instructor, choreographer, and higher education professor and administrator. She holds an MA in dance from York University in Toronto, Canada, and a Bachelor of Science in Dance Management from Oklahoma City University. She has many certifications: personal trainer, dance for PD, introductory and advanced teacher training courses from American Ballet Theater, and many more. In 2018, she applied her artistry in dance to the world of health and wellness. She earned her personal training and group fitness certification and began focusing on helping older adults and people living with Parkinson's. She worked at a national Parkinson's organization for 4 years. There she developed a leadership curriculum, both online and in-person national workshops. Shannon says her greatest wish is to empower others to improve their quality of life through healthful movement and practices of self-inquiry. Shannon, welcome. Adrienne Shurbet, founder and director of Punching Out Parkinson's in Santa Fe. Okay. What can I say about this extraordinary woman? She builds upon her work, initially as a Pilates teacher, and then went on to found and direct Punching Out Parkinson's in 2017. Adrienne moved with her family to New Mexico when she was 5 years old. Years later, as a young woman, she experienced debilitating, extreme back pain. Seeing and feeling the positive results of her Pilates exercises and routines, she became a Pilates teacher. She now directs Punching Out Parkinson's, which has become an important, vital community health resource. Adrienne?
Hi, everyone. I apologize for my awkwardness with the microphone, because normally I don't need one. Okay, good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us for this special conversation on Parkinson's movement and the arts. Today we'll explore movement, music, and creative practices and how they're making a real difference in the lives of people with Parkinson's, physically, emotionally, and even spiritually. Creative arts programs offer significant benefits for people with Parkinson's disease, improving physical, emotional, and cognitive well-being while also fostering social connection and community. Activities like painting, ceramics, and crafting can enhance fine motor skills, boost mood, and improve cognition. Music and dance offer significant benefits for people with Parkinson's by leveraging rhythm to stimulate brain activity and improve physical and non-physical symptoms. These therapies can enhance motor functions like gait and balance, improve speech and respiratory function through rhythmic exercises and singing, and positively impact mood and social connection. Incorporating dancing and singing and playing instruments can facilitate movement and engage neural pathways. These modalities can provide a powerful non-pharmacological approach to Parkinson's, offering a way for individuals to express emotions, find relief from symptoms, and reduce isolation. I apologize for my moderation techniques. We're going to dive right in. Starting with Laura, I'd like for each of you to briefly share your stories. What brought you to the work that you do in the Parkinson's community?
Well, first of all, I was a dancer from the age of 3 to 16, so pretty much everything about music and about life in general, I came through my body first. So that's always been a big interest to me. As a young musician in graduate school, I started studying yoga to help with performance anxiety and body tension, and that led me to all kinds of different study, Alexander technique, Feldenkrais, this Tai Chi, along with yoga and meditation. And I taught for 20 plus years at a workshop every summer called The Anatomy of Sound for flutists, where we used body work alongside traditional music lessons to help people move beyond plateaus in their playing and let their bodies resonate. And from there, I helped my husband win his job in the St. Louis Symphony and then the Philadelphia Orchestra. So I realized, wow, this stuff really, really works. And then have since been teaching some at Juilliard and the Curtis School of Music. So it was music first with me. But then when two of my dearest friends, my dear friend Lori, her husband, was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and of course she knew about all of this work over the years and said, hey, would you consider working a little bit with Tom? And I was like, sure, let's see what we can do. Let's see what these things do for Tom. And the results are really quite extraordinary. And I'm looking forward to talking a little bit about the things that Tom and I have done together, and that Tom has taught me as well. We have shared this journey together and come up with our own sort of system and exercises together. So I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
Gordon, tell us about your journey.
Well, my name's Gordon Woods. I'm the one person on this panel who has not been trained in movement, in therapy through movement. As a physician, my basic training was to prescribe pills. But I came down with Parkinson's disease, was diagnosed 15 years ago, and I was fortunate to have a daughter, Sarah, who's a physical therapist, a registered physical therapist. She practices in San Jose, California. And whenever I would visit, she would always, like, let's look at that walking, let's look at the coordination. Are you getting enough exercise? Let me hear about your diet. And I realized that I actually had a movement specialist in my corner. And one day, the aha moment came when she looked at me and said, Dad, movement is your job. And get into the Parkinson's, punching out Parkinson's program, get to doing some boxing. So 3 years ago, I joined the gym, been going ever since. It has been a tremendous benefit to my health in many ways. So let me hand it off to David.
I'm David Wargo, and Shannon and I are going to swap back and forth during this conversation because we run the company together. So before we dive in, Shannon and I come from very different worlds, and yet we both share a lifelong passion for human movement, for psychology, and the deeper workings of the mind. By bringing those perspectives together, we've created what we call a living lab, and I want to explain what that is. We get some of the toughest orthopedic and neurologic cases out there, and we solve problems when those cases come in and figure out how to help that person, but we take that evidence and that work and we bring it forward to the next person. And if we get a success with that, then we bring it to the next person, and then we study afterward what's happening in the body, neurologically, connections in the body. So the science we're going to give you is after we've already succeeded. That's what we call a living lab. So, it's a place where ideas don't just add, they multiply. 2 brains, 2 vantage points, creating breakthroughs, Shannon and I, exponentially faster than either of us could do alone. So an important disclaimer is Shannon and I are not neuroscientists. We consider ourselves scientists, but as I've said, we do it through observation, experimentation, logic, and reasoning, and real-time results, which is the most important thing. What we will share with you today is just a small glimpse of what our company produces when science, creativity, and living experience come together. So I want to add that even though teaching movement is my primary career and pathway, since we're talking about art, I am an artist. I do make things with steel, with stone, wood, and they sell pretty well, so I am an actual artist. And now, importantly for our work at Movement360 is when we look at clients, we look at them through a historical perspective. And what I mean by that is for millions of years, humans have lived in an environment of uncertainty and adversity, meaning every day they were problem solving, hunting, foraging, navigating, and adapting. The brain, the human brain, thrived on variability and having to balance, having to look at things, having to be creative, and of course, always moving. That was our natural environment, adapting to our environment and dealing with uncertainty and adversity every single day. But in the last 120 years, everything's changed with industrialization and technology. It's given us a lot of things, but it's also given us the most damaging thing to the human body, which is predictability and comfort. And life has become linear, it's become very repetitive, and what looks like progress on the surface has actually been very damaging for the human organism. So we can see this illustrated even more acutely in people living with Parkinson's. The disease isn't only about tremors and walking, it's about loss of motivation. With dopamine disrupted, internal drive can disappear. And in the modern world, that provides almost no meaningful adversity. There's nothing to spark that dopamine system back online. And that's where I get into some of the brain work that Shannon and I have been studying, which is that's where the anterior cingulate cortex, known as the ACC, comes on board. Think of it as the master switch for the brain. When it encounters adversity, it can send one or two messages. If adversity looks like a threat, the ACC can send cortisol out and then avoidance. If adversity is reframed as a nutrient, meaning it's beneficial and healthy for the body and the brain, the ACC signals dopamine, and then motivation is activated. If you attended the panel last week, we learned that this is one of the most important reasons that art matters. We learned that this is, studies show that looking at art creates a spark in resilience, because art is one of the last places where humans still encounter voluntary adversity. A blank canvas, an unfinished poem, the unresolved melody, each forces us into uncertainty, problem solving, and creativity under constraint. And what we're going to talk about is how this area of the brain can be triggered, and all of a sudden dopamine and motivation can come out of that.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Shannon. I'm going to continue this story. So I'm going to pass over my personal story for the moment and just continue on his train of thought. So at Movement360, we apply similar principles that what he was just mentioning with creating and looking at art and how it sparks the motivation system, the center in the brain. We do that with movement protocols at Movement360. We call that type of movement neuroadaptive movement, which means we give people novel and distributed problems to solve in their bodies and their brains. So we're not giving them rote routines to do, things that they know and can repeat each and every week, because there's no growth there. And so I thought David could just show a little bit of what this looks like in reality. So we created, I know it's a little bit tight up here, so we created some protocols using simple props, such as this yoga block and a lacrosse ball, and a jelly ball right there. And so this was created to help someone who is encountering a really dangerous fall risk. And this began the trajectory of where we're headed now with this neuroadaptive movement. So we keep adding more and more complexity. We add new tasks. So not only is he balancing the lacrosse ball on this yoga block, we're adding a second prop and a new task to do, making it more difficult with the first task, and then we might ask him to walk around the room or stand on one leg, so on and so forth. So that is where we're headed with this type of movement, and not just flatlining with it. It's constant challenge, and that is what allows for growth in the brain and healing of the brain. Let's see here, I think we're gonna move forward. So that's the key here, is that constant challenge within the brain and pushing movement more and more each and every day, each and every week. And when that happens, that ACC in the brain, the anterior cingulate cortex, when that flips to knowing that challenge is actually a nutrient for us and it's healthy and beneficial, as opposed to this is scary, this is stressful, I'm going to shut down and I'm going to avoid that. We want that response to be a positive one. And so that creates a cascade of benefits in the body. There are many connections in the brain. The prefrontal cortex, the thinking brain up here, the insula, the amygdala, you might have heard of that, and the motor regions of the brain. The shift spreads everywhere, and there are positive benefits that cascade when we have this type of neuroadaptive movement. So the important takeaway from this is that when we work with clients over time and they experience this for themselves, they tell us that they feel more confident walking into a crowded grocery store. They're less anxious socially, and they even become more hopeful over time. So it's not just their balance on their feet that improves, it's their whole way of being. And so the question isn't, is walking good for me? How about Tai Chi? How about dance? So generally, yes, the answer will be yeah, but mostly in a cardio context. But once that movement or that type of activity becomes routine, and there's nothing new going on, there's no pushing, there's no challenging, then there's no neurological adaptation that's happening in the brain. There's no pushing forward, growing, and healing. So this is something for all of us to contemplate. Comfort is decay, and mastery without novelty is stagnation. So that brings us to the more important question. Does this particular activity, is it stimulating to me? Is it teaching my brain that adversity is actually nourishment? So remember that that's what flips the ACC. That's what reignites the dopamine system and motivation in Parkinson's. And so that's what both art, relating to last week's panel, and then neuroadaptive movement, what we do at Movement360, what they provide, a return to the environment that humans were designed to thrive in. So I think I'll stop there and go on to the next piece.
And what they just spoke about is important for every human being in here, for every brain in here, whether you have Parkinson's or not. Challenge and exposure to new and novel things. Okay, so thank you all. Gordon, we're going to start with you. Are you ready for the question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. From your perspective, what do traditional medical approaches often miss about the lived experience of Parkinson's and the benefits of integration movement-based approaches?
Well, that's a complex question. Traditional medicine does some things very well. I think we all agree on that. But the curriculum is of the things that you can do in life are so broad, it's just impossible to pack all of that into the curriculum. I was talking with David before we started today, and I said, David, I've worked in medical schools for 34 years, plus I attended medical school. There's almost no curriculum on nutrition. There's almost no curriculum on movement as therapy. The focus really is on medications, surgery, very basic aspects of medicine. But so much of the therapy that's available out there is really missed by the medical community. Now, part of that, I think, is the literature. In medicine, you're supposed to only accept as effective treatments that have been proven in scientific trials. And that really is kind of like handcuffs, because there's so much effective therapy out there that you can't draw on financially. And goodness knows we know that traditional medicine is heavily dependent on financing. So how do you get people the help that they need when they have Parkinson's disease, when their practitioner, when their doctor is really just focused on the pills? I think that's kind of the question that we're really asking today.
Yes, yeah. But as far as, well, as a follow-up to that, how does exercise complement for you in your experience? How does the exercise that you do, and I'm going to ask you here in a minute about the other things that you do, your artistic expression, how does that complement, does it feed the part of you that you feel may be compromised by Parkinson's?
Well, when I first came down with Parkinson's, which was 15 years ago, the effect was fairly modest, and I was able to work another 10 years. until I was 69, and then it just came a point where the disease was slowing me down so much. I was just having so much fatigue. I retired simply because there was no point in continuing to work. It was actually damaging my health. Once I was retired, I was able to start walking, and then eventually joined the boxing gym, and I see lots of boxers out there in the group. And my daughter Sarah helped frame the effect of boxing in her model that and she's certified, by the way, through the Power Gym certification program as a Parkinson's physical therapist. And she said, whatever Parkinson's does to your body, push back against that. For instance, Parkinson makes us kind of like draw in and arch our heads down. And she said, so you need to do exercises that push your extremities out and bring your head up and open up your thorax. Parkinson slows down your movements. So you need to do exercises that make you do fast movements. Parkinson's makes you unsteady and likely to fall. And so you need to do exercises where you push yourself to stand on one foot for a long time. And what you're basically doing is making the brain more plastic. Neuroplasticity basically means that you can't, once neurons are gone, they're gone. But the remaining neurons, you can rewire them, increase their wiring, increase the capability of your remaining neurons. So what we're basically doing with these programs is using neuroplasticity to get your remaining neurons to pick up the work and accomplish more than they used to.
Okay, thank you. All right, Laura, you're up. Okay, tell us a little bit about how, in your experience, breath and awareness shift someone's relationship with their movement or their body.
Well, that was my first blush of learning about how to use breath when I was learning to meditate in order to calm my anxiety. And at some point, if we're able to share exercises, I'll share with you an exercise that I have all of my musician clients do, as well as anyone I'm working with Parkinson's as well. But the breath is a new layer of awareness for a lot of people, so that's another access point to feeling the body. And I think we think about the fact that Parkinson's is inherently a disease of subtraction, taking away things that we're able to notice and feel and do. And when we add new pathways through the breath, through ways of moving with the breath, we do two things. Excuse me. One of the things is the breath can be a cue for movement, because as we lose in Parkinson's a little bit of that ability to direct inwardly, which is why dance is so effective, because dance is an external cue, and breath can be a new internal cue that we haven't really used before. So it's very, very powerful. So in yoga, for instance, we inhale to move and exhale to move, and those are cues of when and the length of things, and it's a very powerful thing. And learning to find a new feeling in our body is a plasticity moment. It's teaching us new ways to notice things and notice, wow, there are other things that I can notice if I've lost this thing, right? And in terms of doing yoga poses are not things that are traditionally done all day long. We do all walk during the day, but yoga poses are very different. And so that's creating new pathways to movement. So here we have, maybe I can't get to that the way that I used to, but I know now that there are other ways to move, and you can find those ways, right? So it's really a powerful combination. And when we add music, which I'm sure we'll come back to, that's a whole new world. So rhythm, breath awareness is a cue for movement. We know sometimes as Parkinson's progresses, there's a stall to move. And if we have breath or a rhythm, which Tom and I do a lot, because he was a band director all his life and is a musician. So we use pickups to start things, and one. And it's a body cue, an external body cue to start moving. And I think what you can do as you move forward is that you can do that for yourself with a breath or with a cue of and go. Right? So it's very, very powerful. And if we talk about how breath can change how we feel, I'll get to that. But breath is very important in terms of, I have an exercise that soothes the vagus nerve, which is the direct conversation with our parasympathetic nervous system, which calms us. And we know anxiety is a big thing in Parkinson's, and that can progress and get harder. And a daily soothing of that parasympathetic nervous system, either through yoga or through just a parasympathetic nervous system calming exercise, we are really offering ourselves a way to feel better, to combat anxiety, and to create a pathway to more joy in movement and in life. So it's very important to me.
All right. Okay, you covered all of my follow-up questions. Well done. For you, but there will be more. Okay, for David and Shannon, this is directed at you guys. Parkinson's challenges movement in unique ways, but each of you works with movement to unlock potential. How do you begin to approach movement when working with people who may experience rigidity and limited range of movement?
Hello? One of the things we do with Parkinson's is we ask a very different question. That question is, what is Parkinson's and what is modern human orthopedic and neurologic issues? When we separate those, just separating those things can be profound. And what I mean by that is we have so many people come in where their pelvis is misaligned. About 90% of you in the audience, one side of your pelvis is up, you have leg length discrepancy, you have scoliosis. That leads to rigidity in the body, and every time you step, you fight yourself. That's across the board. So early on in working with people, we take care of the pelvic misalignment. Then we look at the musculature. What's working, what's not working. Many times, the largest muscles in the body, the gluteus maximus, the big butt muscles, they're not working. Most important muscle for lower back, pelvic stability, knees. Most people, they're not working. So we have a recipe for working with things that we've lost in this modern world. And that's why the view that Shannon and I have is from 120 years ago and back. What does that human body look like? We're not looking at the current human body. We want to get you there to our forefathers. Shannon?
I would add that when working with someone new coming into us, how to approach working with each individual, we're really working with the brain and the nervous system now. I like how Laura mentioned the breath and how important that is, the parasympathetic nervous system, and how breath is such a achievable, accessible tool that we have to affect the way that we feel in our bodies and to calm ourselves down from fight or flight into rest, digest, and heal mode. And so we are incorporating more and more of those strategies with everyone. I think we all know we're living in a very interesting time. And so lots of stresses coming from many places. And so when we're dealing with our health and internal and family and relationships, and then we've got the craziness, people's nervous systems are way out of whack right now. So we really have to look at how they're breathing or not. How are their eyes functioning? Can they see? Peripheral vision, so many of these things that are very sensorial based. Little adjustments and tuning in to some of these everyday ways of being can shift someone's state so that they can then heal. I think I'll leave it at that.
Okay. So you all have kind of touched on this a little bit, but here's the question, and Gordon, I want you to speak from, maybe you can start we'll start with you. What emotional or psychological changes do you experience after you have had a session, done a class, or in your case, coming to one of our boxing classes? How does that movement lift your spirit, if it does? I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I'm assuming it does.
You know, it's a little bit like an addiction. You kind of get up in the morning and go, oh, boxing at 1:30, oh boy. I get excited about it. Go down, work out. And I have to say that Adrienne and her coaches push. There are high intensity intervals, there's stretching, there's kind of aerobic training where we do sort of boxing, we'll do movements for sustained periods of time. It's a very well-rounded curriculum. I go home feeling pretty tired. And occasionally we'll just get home, fall asleep for a little bit, get something to eat. And after going to boxing, it's like my body needs protein. So I'll find something that has a little protein in it. But the effect, I mean, I can only, well, I've worked up to going to 3 sessions per week. I've got to the point where, for a while, I could only do 2 sessions per week. Going to 3 was just too much exercise and my body would break down. But now I'm able to pretty much regularly attend 3 sessions per week. And I can tell that I just have more strength, more stamina, my balance is better, and honestly, my head is clearer. And it's not just a brief thing, it's kind of a sustained thing.
Okay. So for the rest of you, as people who work with people who have Parkinson's, what emotional, psychological changes do you see in people after a session?
I'd like to go first. We're all looking at each other. I mean, I get a little overwhelmed by all the things that I've seen because we know that music doesn't just use one part of the brain. It uses the entire brain and many different facets of it. And I know that rhythm, this is an interesting thing that I did not know before. This is something that I learned from Renee Fleming, the great soprano, that we feel music in our body, rhythm in our body before our brain detects it. So that's a powerful thing about movement and about suddenly the body begins to feel more free. And that's the first thing I see when we use movement and rhythm, that the freedom starts to return, and that makes happiness start to show up, and laughter. Tom and I are always cracking up when we're working together, and that's a part of it. And we're also doing something when we work together rhythmically called entrainment. Entrainment, when you listen to music or when you do something in rhythm together, even if we all did it together in this room, eventually we would begin to have our heart rate sync. That's why live concerts are so powerful. Speaking of which, Santa Fe has a concert tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Santa Fe Symphony, if you would like to come and train with us. But we fall into rhythm with one another. And when that happens, we help each other move as well. So the more we're together, the more we are helping one another move. And this sense of freedom happens. And when we add the chords and the music to it, well, now we have an emotional aspect. So we can access things like grief or joy or sadness or anxiety and feel it and go, let me move through that. I had a story about not music exactly, but it certainly was a component. In the St. Louis Symphony, we had a small boy who listened to music in a competition that we did for little kids in elementary school. They would listen to a piece of music and draw. It's called Picture the Music. A lot of orchestras do that. And about a month after that competition, I got a phone call from 2 parents who were both psychologists, and they let us know that their little boy, who I guess at the time was 8, one of his teachers had passed away in front of the classroom, had fallen and passed away, and his 2 psychologist parents had spoken to him about it, had taken him to talk about it to psychiatrists, and had worked with him over and over to talk about it, to release it. And she said, for the first time, he drew a picture of what happened in himself with a tear. And they were overwhelmed. So music unlocks us, but rhythm unlocks us, all of us. But in Parkinson's, it can truly be a magical experience. And so I see hope, I see laughter, I see a huge lift in spirit, and also a different kind of anxiety. It's much more manageable, and of course confidence, right? And a feeling of hope in terms of, if I can't move this way, I can find another way to move. It's very powerful.
Dave and Shannon.
One of the things we see is when clients come in, Shannon and I have a joke that people come in and their brain's on sticks, trying to get their brain from one place to another, and they're not embodied. They can't feel their body, they don't understand their body. It's simply a vehicle to get them from one problem to another. And I think I have goosebumps because one of the most profound things we see is when we teach someone to walk, and I'm not talking someone disabled, I'm talking just everybody learns how to walk, and we teach them this, they're feeling their muscles, they're feeling their stomach, they're feeling their body, and then things start to change because they're not a brain on a stick anymore. They're in their body and they feel the world. They start being a part of the world, and they start being a part of community, and they start hearing, seeing, and thinking differently. Do you have any more on that? Because you do so much on that.
I think I'll just go ahead with my own point. So, in regard to your question there, Adrienne, what came to mind for me was the class that I teach. We teach small group classes at Movement360, and there's one of them in particular called Balance and Neuroconnection. And we have lots of props, just like what you saw. And we are working on balance and reconnecting brain to body in lots of fun ways. And so what is most in the forefront of my mind is the connection amongst the people in the class and what they learn from watching one another and seeing when things are possible. So it's not necessarily always what the person experiences themselves, it's when they see someone else do it, and it motivates them and inspires them, and it just grows. So, yeah.
That's great. Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. Okay, so I have one more thing that I'm going to ask from each of you, except for you, Gordon, unless you have something you want to jump in with. And then we're going to open it up to questions from you all. So don't think about them now. I want you to listen to what they're going to say. Then you can start thinking about your questions. Okay, what's one simple practice that, whether it's movement, a breath technique, or rhythm exercise, that audience members can try today or share with someone they might know with PD, with Parkinson's? Sure.
One thing that Adrienne has done is brought in a speech pathologist.
Yes, Ariana.
And with Parkinson's disease, you routinely have difficulty swallowing. And Ariana has taught us a little exercise where we poke out our tongue and just swallow saliva forcefully, under control, to strengthen these muscles. And that has turned out to be the one exercise that I probably practice every day and internalize.
Okay, everyone, force swallow. Swallow on purpose. Use everything you've got. Good job. Okay, Laura.
Well, I was smiling because Tom and I do something called lion's pose from yoga that I'm actually doing to help with swallowing, and so that we don't lose that ability. It looks very funny, so excuse me, but this is lion's pose.
Mm-hmm.
So please join me.
Yes. Here we go. Give us your best lions.
Yes, so we're stretching the tongue, we're manipulating where the tongue is in the throat, and it helps us. Tom and I also, when we box, and I'm sure this is a component of every boxing class, we yell out the moves to keep our voices strong. So I highly encourage you to do that as well. For breathing, what is so important, the vagus nerve, and that's V-A-G-U-S, not Vegas baby. Although after you do this exercise at some point you may feel that way, because most of my students do say that, Vegas baby. And we can't do it together now because it takes 10 minutes. So keep that in mind. You have to do it for 10 minutes. That's a scientific proven fact. Less than that, it's not going to do anything. But if you exhale longer than you inhale for 10 minutes, and I choose to hum when I do that, partially because I can hum longer than I can just think about counting back and forth, 4 to 8 or something. I hum longer. But then when I'm humming, I'm also stimulating my vocal cords, and I'm stimulating the vagus nerve itself, which is traveling back through here, goes down through the throat and then out into the body, innervates the diaphragm, and into the stomach, all this wonderful stuff that makes us feel better. But if you do that for 10 minutes, always exhaling for 10 whole, longer than you inhale, you soothe the vagus nerve, which means you stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system, which, as Shannon said, is the rest and digest part of the nervous system. And it's a very, very powerful thing. Do one hum with me, just so you can really practice giving a good loud hum. So, breathe. So you don't have to count, you don't have to do anything. When I teach my classes, we do that at the end of the class for 10 minutes. Can you feel it? Oh, and we didn't even do it for 10 minutes. When you do it for 10 minutes, everything begins to really, really change. If we have time at the end, I'll do a rhythmic thing with you. But I want to take a moment really quickly to talk about fascia, because fascia is what makes movement work and yoga work so well. Over the last 5 years, let me tell you what fascia is. In my experience, a fascia is the casing that goes over all of your muscles, and each muscle, but also all of the muscles as a whole, so it connects everything. And they used to think of fascia as like the covering of a sausage. It's this dead thing that you peel off. And over the last 5 years or so, they've realized that it's an alive system, and it is a direct communicator to the nervous system, to the body. So when our body absorbs rhythm before our brain does, it's a communication to move in throughout the body. It's also a communication with the nervous system. So movement really does make us feel better. Absolutely. And fascia has a lot of different components, but one of the things that's important to us is that it hardens with fast movement. So think about that for a second. When you want to move, if you have Parkinson's and you want to jerk, your fascia is going to fight you, right? It's one of the reasons a baseball doesn't shatter your hand, one of the many reasons it doesn't shatter your hand when you catch it, because the fascia grips like that, right? So when you stretch it, when you lubricate it, when you give it information, your whole body is different, your whole outlook is different, your whole way you feel and move in the world is different. I highly recommend any kind of movement, but always stretching too, right? It's a powerful thing, and it's life-altering for all of us, but yes, for Parkinson's a great deal. That was a little more than you asked, but
Thank you. Yes, fascial release. Look into it.
yes.
All right, David and Shannon, what's one thing?
One thing.
One thing.
Your butt muscles.
Let's talk about your butt muscles.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
One of the things we really focus on here is your daily movement patterns, how you sit, how you stand, and how you walk. And it won't come as any surprise that so many people have never been taught how to stand, how to walk, how to sit. And I want to give you one cue that can start changing that, because we have so many people, so many doctors stand for the first time in the middle of our studio, and they stand up straight because no one's ever given them a cue on actually how to do it. And so I guess your cue is going to be always be squeezing, and I'm going to stand for a second.
Are we going to make everyone else stand up?
No, I'm not going to do that tonight.
Can we do that, please? Can we make everyone stand?
So most people have a forward lean to their body, and we call it a C-shaped forward. And if you're in this shape forward, you can't squeeze your butt. And so what I want you guys to think about next time you stand is pushing this forward like that and squeezing your butt next time you stand, and then all of a sudden you have a C shape backward. And now you're stretching your quads, your hip flexors, your lower back is loose, your neck muscles are loose, and you're actually standing up straight. Just one cue that I wanted to give everyone, where every time you stand, start squeezing them, push your pelvis forward, lean slightly back, and it's that C-shape forward that you don't want, and that C-shape backward slightly that you do want, and that can start changing you dramatically.
Does everyone know where their glutes are? You do? Okay, good.
If not,
I'd like everybody to stand up, use your glutes. Oh, squeeze them.
Hips forward.
Oh, doesn't that feel good?
Squeezed. Hold a penny between your butt cheeks.
Here we go. You're welcome.
You'll never
Are you
forget
kidding?
it.
All right, you all can sit down. We're going to start the questions. Do we have, you want this one?
Hi, thank you all. I'm just wondering, these are all amazing approaches and techniques. I'm just wondering how we can apply this to prevention, not just for people who are at risk, but all of us as we're, moving into a culture of absolute forward, lots of sedentary.
Move more.
Yeah, yeah.
Stand up every 15 minutes. Do these kinds of movements. Lift your chest. Pull your shoulders back. Avoid this. Tuck your chin in. Do yourselves a favor. Open your chests. Think about it. Set reminders. But move more. Everybody needs to move more.
Yeah, all the time. And
We're built to move.
fascia has another component in that if you pull it to a certain point, it will mold to that shape, and that's what you're talking about. If you're on your computer all day and you're hunched over, will eventually mold that way. Now, Parkinson's is genetic, right? So preventing Parkinson's is that's a different thing from the movement. It's not going to keep you from getting it. It'll slow the progression, and it'll slow movement, and all of the things that we're talking about slows aging. Like I said, if we have time, I'll show you something that we can do all together to show some community and movement together. But dance, listen to music, move, go to concerts, find a yoga class, find a pickleball class, anything that is moving, anything that's not sitting. What are they saying now, that sitting is the new smoking? Yeah, and if you hold your cell phone down like this, start holding it like this, so that you don't get what they call text neck. I see lots of text neck with that kind of thing. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Put the cell phones down and walk away.
Yeah.
It would be our dream to have a Movement360 system in schools so that kids
Yes.
could learn from a young age all about movement patterns and how to prevent. So along those same lines you were talking about there, yeah.
So first of all, thank you. This has been terrific, and the way that we've seen the five of you interact has been fortifying. I want to go to the question of genetics, because for a long time we thought that genetics was a factor in maybe 5% of people with Parkinson's. We now know it's about 12 to 13% have an identified genetic mutation. But the 87–88% of people who do not, it's either that we don't know their mutation yet, or increasingly it's environmental toxins.
Yes, yes.
And so there is a big move afoot to try and really codify the removal of certain chemicals from our environment. Chemicals that are made in China and the United Kingdom, they don't even allow used in their countries, but they're happy to ship them to the United States. So as you think about your advocacy work, please think about TCE, paraquat, and the list is going to just keep growing.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I'm so glad you said that. Filtered water, not in plastic bottles, because
more
microplastics are bad. But yeah, filter your water. That's a good first step, at the very least.
I want to thank you as well. What I want to say is that when David and Shannon came into my husband's life, he became a butt squeezer, stood up for the first time for 6.
Well played, Sean.
Stood up, and the question I have is, and what I noticed is, the positivity that I saw when we went and when he went. I think that's a big issue, and I haven't heard anybody mention that today, but you can be a teacher, but without that positivity that we saw and that you feel at the core of what you're doing, I think that's what's really important.
Mm.
How do you keep that positivity?
Vegas,
You guys,
babies.
we're inspired by the people we work with. That's what makes us keep the positivity. Every day we see amazing things.
Seeing the change, that it's possible.
Giving people hope, and sometimes for the first time ever.
Any other questions? One more. Deanne in the back there.
So I was diagnosed last November with Parkinson's. Any of you had experience working with early onset Parkinson's, and what kind of progress or lack thereof have you seen with younger patients?
Yes, quite a bit. And the earlier we can get to the person, what I've seen over a long period of time, 5 to 7 years, I can do so much more with the human brain, with the body, with intervention. I can say with specific people, I'm taking their brains beyond what they could ever do before they had Parkinson's, and adding benefit and things that they could not do before Parkinson's. But that's someone that's pushing and doing progressive. They start with a ball and block, but now they're doing Cirque du Soleil stuff. And that's the type of work that I do with my advanced Parkinson's people that are young onset, because I'm fighting Parkinson's not today, I'm fighting it 2 years down the road, and I'm looking for things that are gonna emerge in 2 or 3 years, and I'm looking out there. That's, if you see any of our work, they're on balls, they're doing crazy things, but I'm looking down the road for what's going to be affected, not what's shaking today, not what's presenting today. I'm looking as deep and as far as I can. That's why I push so hard. And what I'm seeing is in the brain, I'm growing the cerebellum, I'm growing the prefrontal cortex, and I'm creating growth in the brain constantly. And if you want a metaphor, I'm creating fight or flight without fear and cortisol, but I'm getting all the brain chemicals.
Thank you.
And if I just might say, I waited 12 years before I really got into a program of exercise. Looking back, that was a mistake. I wish I hadn't done that. So,
And don't isolate yourself. Get involved in the Parkinson's community. We have some wonderful things happening. And there's a lot of support, there's a lot of humor, but don't isolate yourself. Start, whether it's working with them, coming and beating up on a heavy bag. Yes, there are support groups, and we are actually, we're working on trying to get a young onset
support group started here in the not too distant future. Yeah, so don't isolate.
And the community thing is important, if I could say.
Yes, Gordon, talk about community.
There are a number of boxers here, and I know that you all feel this. We go to the gym, there's a room with 15 people, all who have Parkinson's disease. We're all in the same boat. And there's a camaraderie there that just can't be reached any other way. The coaches come out, we all work out together, and there's a feeling of accomplishment and belonging. So that's the other thing, is find a community of people who have Parkinson's disease and are working on this, and join that community, and you'll find yourself inspired.
How do you come up with the exercises with the ball and the block and things like that? And also, can partners of Parkinson's people join in and do all those things too?
Absolutely. Yes. The way we came up with it, the block and ball, came from a woman that was almost 90 out of the emergency room, and she didn't tell me on the phone that she had fallen on the back of her head 3 times that week and taken ambulance rides to the hospital. I was freaking out trying to figure out how to get her to not fall on our floor, because back then it was concrete. What I was doing right there was, when I had her grab that yoga block and put a ball there, I was keeping her prefrontal cortex busy. Her standing started coming from her cerebellum and her brainstem, where it's supposed to reside. And that's where all of our stuff comes from in our lab. So she'd stop falling that day, because I started switching. Balance belongs in your cerebellum, your prefrontal cortex. Trauma, modern life, puts it in your cerebellum, and it fights with executive function. And so immediately with those people, we start giving them drills, and neuroplasticity and neurological moves much faster than muscle. I think we can all agree. When we work on that, it happens almost instantaneously. And so what we look for is new and novel. As soon as you get good at this, I take it away. As soon as you get good at that, I take it away. And we keep adding progressions, and what Shannon and I are working on is, not to get into AI, but we're going to be using a closed AI model, not connected to the internet, and dumping all my 16 years, all of her work in. So all these progressions will be in there, and the model will also be able to come up with progressions that I haven't even come up with. So people might not be comfortable with coming up with uncertainty, but we're creating a model that will be able to.
Sure. All right, can we pull this table back a little so I can be in front of it up here? We may not be able to. Actually, I can do it from here. I may fall, but that's okay. All right. So do me a favor, if you can stand, and let's not go here. You can stay seated, we'll just use your feet. So anything is fine in that regard. So all I want you to do, we're going to do something without music and then something with. All right? So first thing we're going to do, oh, sure. Except I need my hands to clap, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. All right, so we're going to do something with no music. So we're just going to, you don't even have to move very much, but those of you that do have room, let's go this way first, and then this way. All we're going to do is go step, 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 clap. Step, 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 clap. Step, 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 clap. Step, 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 clap. Great. So, not hard. That's what we want to do. Yeah, I know somebody's already going, let's do this. Yeah. All right. Anybody remember the song, Row, Row, Row Your Boat? Aha. No one ever doesn't know that. Can we sing that? I'm not sure that was the right key, but let's, for me, let's sing that together once just to remind ourselves. Here we go. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Easy, let's walk with it. Here we go. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Good. If you are male, can you go row, 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 row? Do it with me. 2, ready, and Row, 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 right. All right, thank you. Reason I'm choosing men is because you are a bass line. So I'm going to get the bass line started, and then we're going to sing. The rest of us are going to sing row, row, row your boat, but we're all going to move, right? Here we go. Men. Row, 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 row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Oh, yeah. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Wait, nobody's having any trouble getting started. Look at these smiles, the whole room. So that's the community. We're already starting to entrain with each other a little bit, right? The joy starts coming out. All right, now we got to do the round. Now we're going to get complex. All right, so how do we do that? The men stay on the row, the bass line, we got to have the row. This half of the room is going to start the row your boat, and we're going to come in when I start you. So I'll give you a big cue, all right? And then we just go for a while, all right? Here we go. Here we go. Row, 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 really loud, 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 one more round, and row, 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 row. Oh, we all gotta move though, right? You gotta move with me all the time. One more time, here we go. Row, 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 everybody move. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Keep going. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life, get ready. Row, row, row your boat. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. One more. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. You can do that with any song on the radio. When she says, just move. Anyway, like when you stood up and went like that, that's moving, right? With the beat, right? The external cue. Look at the joy in the room, right? Life is good, right? All right, thank you.